I want to switch the direction here just a little bit because you have some deep domain expertise when it comes to sales as well. Been having some interesting conversations with folks that have over the last couple of years have seen the overall compensation packages for many of their sales professionals explode.
Right.
And many of them have come to us and said, hey, we want to be thoughtful about this. We want to change the comp plan. I don't mind paying my top performers $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. We have a few clients who've paid their top sales guys $1 million. Mm-hmm. So we struggle with some of these folks who, quite frankly, aren't performing well enough on the job and yet are making $150,000 to $200,000. Those checks are hard to write. And I have struggled, I think, to articulate or to persuade them to say, let's just hold off for now because there's a lot of risk for unintended consequences. Here's what I do. I bring on smart people. I take my consulting challenges. I turn them over to you. How should we think about this? How do you think? Because you guys are experiencing the same thing.
Right.
How do you view this with your business?
So I look at the person, right? Okay. Number one is the worst thing you can do in a sales organization, because no matter what we do, no matter what business we're in, especially in our sector, lumber, building materials, concrete construction, whatever, plumbing, it's a sales organization. Mm-hmm. And I should say it's a profitable sales organization, right? That's what we want to be. Changing comp plans creates insecurity, consternation, and lack of security. So before we go, and we're talking about the same thing about changing comp plans, right? And we kicked it around a little bit, like how do we enhance it? How do we drive growth?
Right.
But what we don't want to do is cut. So the first thing I do is I come into an organization and I hear about that guy making $150, $200 a year, and I look at him like, he shouldn't be flipping burgers. Like, why is he here? But he's been here for years, and we've allowed it to happen. Mm-hmm. So is that his fault or is that our fault?
Right.
And it's our fault. So the next thing you look at is you look at the number of accounts they have, and I walked into an organization, the guy had 164 accounts. And
too few or too many?
About 3x too many, right? Yeah.
Right.
Maybe if he was in the 300 range, I'd go for it. Give him all the accounts. But 164 accounts. How do you effectively do that? And I don't look at it from a compensation standpoint. I look at that as we're holding the organization back. Because to me, the optimal amount of accounts is about 50. Okay. Some will have 40, some will have 60. Okay. But I think 50 is that sweet spot. Because you have normally your top 10 are your rock stars. Then 11 through 30 are those everyday ones that just need once a week. And the last 10 or 20 should be the ones that you want to cultivate. Mm-hmm. And those last 10 or 20 you can change out consistently, right? But the other 114 is an opportunity for somebody else to come in and continue to execute and grow the business. But it's a tough conversation. Yeah. We've done it with a few folks in our organization. What we told them is, hey, if you made X amount this year with 164 accounts, now I'm just using that example in this one, we're going to take away 80. And if you made 150 grand this year, we're going to give you that for the same year, right? But now you have time to get deeper with the accounts you have or find new accounts.
Yes. But
when you do that, if you don't do that, it's a drain on the organization. That's not fair. And it's not fair so much to the salesperson, but the people supporting them, the people that some of our guys, unfortunately, in our industry live paycheck to paycheck, right? It's fact. And I think it's our job to help change that. But you're holding everybody else down. Right. So, and some companies make salesmen these heroes that they may or may not be. Mm-hmm. And I'm a sales guy at heart. I love our salespeople. Yeah, that's what we do. But they've got to earn it.
Yeah. So I'd love to get your thoughts on how we end up here. A lot of intelligent people who've been running successful businesses for a long time. Mm-hmm. I would say it is the rule rather than the exception for me to come in and say 164, 88, I'm in distribution, I've got 350. So why would we think we can continuously and intentionally deliver value to that many people, companies, etc.? And yet, it happens all the time. Any idea how we end up here? Why is this so common?
I just don't think we thought about it. I mean, quite frankly, it's that simple, right? It's like, hey, I've got Bradley and it's different by business, right? So the two-step business I ran, they needed about 100 accounts because they covered a wide swath of land. And it's a different sales call than a technical sales call for a highway DOT contractor.
Sure.
But we just said, hey, that's that person's territory, and we gave it to them. And we never looked at what's the art of the potential or the art of the possible with that customer.
Yeah.
So you get a customer that does, $5,000 a year and we're paying a commission on it. Is that really meaningful? And we were so, I think historically, we've just, everyone's grown up in the industry together, and that's Brad's territory. I'm not going to mess with him. And he's grown and grown and grown. But it's different to have, 50 customers when you're a $30 million company, and you go to a $150 million company, and now you have 90 customers or 100, right? No one's gone through the sales management process.
Yeah.
And I think when people do that, it's an eye opener, number one. And number two is you look at the impact of the bottom line. It doesn't hurt the salesman too bad. Actually, at all, in most cases. And if you cover them, you're talking less than 5% of their income. Mm-hmm. But you do it on a global scale, that's a lot of dollars.
You mentioned the art of the possible with the customer. You come into an organization, you want to try to reframe how we look at the business with a salesperson,
right, or
a sales manager, or both. What does that look like? What is that conversation about the art of the possible with the customer? What does that sound like?
It's fun, right? So I have a real life example of this. It's happened about a month ago.
Okay.
We have a customer, and I won't say where they are, and they're huge potential, huge, right? And we've had a salesperson on them for about 5 or 6 years, and they sold them about, say, $250,000 a year. And when I spoke to salesman X about that,
yes,
they said, no, that's all they get. That's all we get all their business. So I'm like, oh, I'm sure you do, right? If you do, should be no problem to sit down with the leadership, and I want to introduce myself. And to me, getting on the field is big, right? After being on board with New South about 9 months now, it's important to understand people and understand what our customers are saying. So I sit down with Customer X's president, and we're chatting, and just a great guy, real down to earth. And I go, so how much of your spend do we have? And people don't ask that question. And I think it's critical. How much are you spending and how much do we get? So we measure it. And to me, that's how you define the art of the possible. And I was talking to Salesman X on the way there, and you can't do that. I'm like, why not?
Ask for what you want. This is a piece of information that's really critical if we had it.
Okay. Right. If you've got this great relationship and you're knocking out of the park, what if he says 100%? That's awesome. That's a feather in your cap. And it turned out we had less than 5% of their business. And I mean, jaws just dropped. Right. And it's so we made a move. We still took care of the salesperson on that account, and we put somebody else on that. And I think we're going to have some good success. But that's how you measure it, right? Now, you can't just say, hey, I'm going to drive from Fort Worth to Miami, and we'll figure it out. Right. Versus I know I need this much gas, and I got to take whatever freeway to get there, and that's your path.
Well, I love that, because that is an executive leader who has a sales mentality. And too often we end up in these conversations, or we ask questions where there's really no risk of rejection. There's no risk of hearing no. With that, there is. But again, that's one of these small pieces of information that can change everything.
Oh yeah, so absolutely.
That's really powerful.